Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, I should say, if you're on the East Coast. I am Stacey Dunn Emke with Nutrition Jobs, and I am super excited to be here with you today. There's a lot going on, but first, I want to thank Leah and everyone that's involved with the Built Up Dietitians. I think it's a fabulous organization as a way to promote and encourage and support all of our members in our profession. We have a really unique profession in that we have a great audience who is very receptive to the work that we do, and we just have to meet ourselves and our customers where they are, and improve the perception and the career opportunities for dietitians and dietitians to be. So I'm very, very excited about that. I'll just talk for a few more minutes before I get into some questions as we start to roll in some more viewers. Thank goodness there's viewers. There's so much going on. I don't know about you, but my inbox is just flooded with lots of good emails, lots of updates from companies still. Anyone who I've ever given my email address to is giving me updates about how they feel about things or if they're open or closed. I'm in San Francisco, and we are still sheltered in place mostly. We sort of moved to the next phase, but it doesn't feel that much different at my house, where everyone is still going to school online, and my husband and I are both working from the house. So I've been relegated to the dining room. So I lost my home office. As I just joked with another dietitian the other day, my regular house now feels like a camper or an RV. Like everyone's here all the time. Thankfully, we don't have a porta potty, though. We have regular bathrooms. So I want to say a few things. I will get into the topic of nutrition and careers and professional profiles, because that is my love. I love that element that I've found, and I'm happy to be able to bring any information I know from my experience onto other dietitians and dietitians to be. Of course, there's the larger picture going on with Black Lives Matter and justice for all. And I'm lucky enough to live in San Francisco, where we have a really diverse community. And my kids were sort of questioning about all of the strange happenings in the news recently, because I'm sure we definitely do have racism in San Francisco, but not on the same level that you would see elsewhere. And so I feel very privileged to work with people of color, and my children do as well. They go to school with people of color. So I feel both isolated and lucky. But I thought that I would just give a pitch then for, if you're a dietitian and wanting to know what to do on a professional level and how to support any efforts towards equality for people of color, or Black people in particular, or all people of color. I highly recommend supporting in any way that you can the Diversify Dietetics. Tamara Milton, she was just on Built Up Dietitians not too long ago, and she's a wonderful resource. And I had the great opportunity to work with her at Fancy last year. So they're just a really great organization. So they have a great website, and there's lots of resources that they have there and how you can get involved. That said, let's talk about dietetic careers and your professional profile. Take a little moment to sort of recalibrate and think about yourself for a bit, and how you're presenting yourself out to employers or to yes, thanks for that. I love it when people start interacting, because it's so funny when you're giving these lives that you are not getting a lot of feedback. And I've been able to do a lot of webinars on dietetic coaching and careers. And so that is the fun part about being able to interact with people. So if you've got questions, put them in, and we can hopefully address them. But Leah has compiled a list of some questions that have been coming up and that people are interested in. So I'll address those. I think one of the main issue that I always want to convey to people when you are applying for jobs, looking for jobs, trying to boost your side hustle as a job, as ambassador, as a writer, freelance, on-call person, whatever it might be, to increase your opportunities by increasing your confidence and by improving your professional profile. So in your professional profile, there's your resume or your CV, and I'll talk a little bit about that. There's your LinkedIn profile, and then there is sort of everything else that's sort of related to you. But I like to focus on resume, CV, and LinkedIn profile. So when someone says, how many resumes should I have? I've applied to lots of different jobs, and it's sort of same job title, but I want to know then how many resumes should I have? I have written an entire ebook on the topic of resumes and resume guides. It is a resume guide and all about resumes and every little granular detail that goes into what a standout, modern, winning resume should look like. And I think there's some key elements to it. One is not having too many resumes out there that are telling a lot of different stories. So I believe in one resume, mostly one resume, one CV, and one awesome LinkedIn profile. Let me just talk about the resume. So there is a place for having multiple resumes, but I really think that you should have one resume with one summary of qualifications, and then you can tailor it a little bit towards a unique job or a specific job that you're looking for or applying to, or a brand that you're trying to connect with, or if someone's asked you for a keynote presentation to provide a resume and you want to make sure that it reflects the topic that you're talking about, then I believe in that one resume that has your qualifications for the work that you're trying to do. Now, there's going to be situations where you're looking at a couple different jobs and you can make a couple tweaks to that resume. But I think in general, one resume and then one CV. And the CV, your curriculum vitae, that is the document that will have every single professional achievement, award, certificate, presentation, webinar, course, job, every single job you've ever had. It's like your professional rundown of who you are that you maintain. That is your master document that has everything on there. It could also have a couple different summary of qualifications on there. That's that little section that goes right below your name. You could do that. I think then you should have that one resume that is the distilled version of your CV, and that really speaks to who you are, what value you can add to another company or to somebody that you're trying to pitch to, or of course for a recruiter for a company that you want to work at. So that one resume then should be around 1 to 2 pages, never more than 2 pages, honestly, unless they've asked for a CV. And then you can provide that where it's got a master list of all of your, if you're into research, if you have all of your professional academic abstracts or papers that you've written, any publications that you've written. If you're also a seasoned author and you've got a lot of writing examples that you want to include, you could do that. You could present a CV. I think that's reasonable, that's acceptable. But let's go back to the resume then. And so let's assume that you now have got your awesome LinkedIn profile. You've got, which I can tell you how to do as well. Not in this Facebook Live, but I'll give a couple headers, and then you can go back over to my website, Nutrition Jobs, where I've got lots of information. I believe that then that one CV and then your resume. So your resume then, if you've been working for less than 5 years, 3 years, somewhere in that ballpark, it probably should be about 1 page, or 1 page is acceptable. If you've been working over that, or you've got a lot of great work experience or volunteer experience, then you can bump up your resume to 2 pages. Again, I don't ever recommend more than 2 pages, because oftentimes there might be something in that unless you're an extraordinarily prolific person in the work that you've done, then you don't want to have too many pages. So that's sort of my ballpark estimation how many pages, and where to put that professional information. The next question was talking about like multiple versions, which hopefully that's cleared up. The question next is about whether you should have a statement at the beginning of your resume, like your objective or your summary of qualifications or your professional summary. And I highly recommend that. So how it looks is that you've got your resume, the header with your name and your email address. That's your personal email address, not your work email address. Your contact information, which could include your city and your state, but not your street address. You don't need to include that. In fact, it's important not to include that for security reasons. Then you have your telephone number. That is your personal mobile number. I don't recommend using your house number, or of course not your work number. So if you've got a mobile number that you can include, definitely do that there. And then you can include your LinkedIn profile and any other relevant social media links that you want to include. But then just under that is what I call your summary of qualifications. You can call it whatever you want to. Do not call it your objective. That's sort of a term that's been used in the past, and a modern resume doesn't really use that term anymore, because objective is just more about you and what you want to do, which is important and significant. But what you want to tell the person reading the resume is what you can do for them. What is it that you can do for them? How can you add value based on your past experience, your background, your motivation, your passion, your expertise, as I already said? How can you help that company succeed? What value are you going to add when you're applying for a job, or when you're trying to pitch a company? So that is why I believe a summary of qualifications is a great term. Professional summary, about me. There's lots of different terms you can use up there. Do not use the word objective. Some people don't even put a header in there. I think that's fine as long as it's really clear. And in that, then you want to include who you are, what you've done, sort of a brief thing about what you've done, your background, and what you can do, and where you're going. So just a brief little thing. I've got a lot of that specific information on my website, the summary of qualifications, and I've got some courses, and there's one course that I have that's listed on my website under webinars. If you go to nutritionjobs.com, and then the top navigation bar, there's an item called webinars. That will take you over to my courses. And in there's one course called Boost. I highly recommend going to that one. That one's a freebie, and it can get you started. It talks about confidence, talks about some of the basics or some of the essentials of what your resume should look like in your LinkedIn profile. It has sort of everything distilled down into just less than 30 minutes. So I highly recommend going in that direction. So yes, I do recommend a brief summary at the top. It's just a 3 or 4 sentence statement about who it is. I tell you, I do a lot of resume reviews. And when I pick up a resume, I just did one recently. I picked up this resume and I looked at it, and it took me a long time to figure out who this person was and where they've been and where they're going. It was so not clear to me. And it wasn't until I started talking with this person that I realized that she was actually this rock star person, amazing experience. And it just wasn't even clear to me even what job she was applying for or would want to apply for. So we cleaned it all up, made lots of just editing, conciseness, and just highlighting some jobs that weren't even in there that were amazing that she'd done, like private practice. She didn't even include that. And that just shows so many amazing skill sets that can be applied to a lot of different types of jobs. So we rearranged it, and then we added in a summary of qualifications. I don't even know if we gave it a title or not. And it was suddenly such a clear document about who this person was and what value they can add to another facility or another place that she wanted to go to. And she was very successful in her job search. And that is not that her experience didn't change. It was just the way she presented that experience. So I highly recommend including something that makes it very easy for the recruiter to be able to see who you are and where you want to go and what you can do for that company. That said, I think it's again, you can title it however you want to. I polled, interviewed lots of recruiters, hiring managers, other dietitians, about what they would like to see on a resume when I was creating the dietetic resume guide. And I'll tell you, 75% of the recruiters that I polled, that I queried, said that they really appreciate a summary of qualification statement at the top of someone's resume if it's done well. They really do appreciate that. So that's a pitch for that. One person asked, what type of master's program do you think is best? I don't think it matters, but it is going to be required. If you're new coming into the field, having a master's program is going to be required. You already know that. Making transition, if you've had a gap in your experience, I always recommend, if you've had a gap in your work experience, do not try to hide that gap. Don't try to rearrange your resume so that it isn't really showing who it is that you are and what you've done. It's perfectly fine to have gaps in your resume these days. It's not unusual. No one expects somebody to be working all the time. You may have taken some time off to care for family, or to support maybe another spouse in some endeavor, or maybe you're traveled as a family or as an individual. So there's lots of reasons why you may have taken a gap. Address that gap in your cover letter or any communication you have. But your resume can just state, you don't even have to call out that you've had a gap, but you can include some skills that you've gained during that time in your skills section on your resume. And that is really important. I think what matters is, while you're taking a gap from the profession, to consider your professional development. Keep that top of mind, whether you're attending Facebook groups where you're working with other individuals, staying up to date with courses, webinars, courses, Coursera, whatever it might be. You can talk about that and highlight that to show that during that time away that you were actually doing something about your professional profile, your understanding of dietetics, and how you can apply it then to your next endeavor. So you don't need to hide it. I like we talk about different types of resume formats. There's 3 different major types, the chronological and the functional, and then the mixed version. When I queried the dietetic recruiters, they were very clear about wanting to have a resume that was a chronological, organized resume. And I think it just helps, and they look at their resumes so quickly. It's such a quick process. They've got a pile of resumes, and as dietitians, our profession, they're not, the recruiters are not getting a stack of 1,000 resumes through their applicant tracking system. They're probably getting 20 to maybe up to 50 or so for each position, depending on what the position is. And so, but they still don't have a ton of time in their day to read through each section of the resume. And so you've really got to make it very clear to them who it is that you are, what you've done, and how that's going to relate to this next job. And so having a reverse chronological order is sort of the way to go. That's what recruiters want to see. And that just means you put the most recent event first, and then list them in chronological order, with the oldest on the bottom. So whether that's for certificates, whether that's for skills can be done different, but for obviously work experience, for volunteer experience, anything else that has a date. Memberships, I like to include the national first, then state, and then local things. You can organize that however you want to. Some people organize it by the date that they became a member, and go on down that way, with the most recent first. That way they can see what your current activities are. Let me talk a little bit about, let's see if there was one other. Let me talk a little bit about skills. Skills now there's a couple different ways you can list the skills on your resume. One is by indicating what that particular skill is and then separating them by commas so that an applicant tracking system can quickly identify and see if there's an algorithmic match. So those skills can be your computer skills, it can be your language skills, it can be your any other type of technical skills you might have, like a lactation, consulting, understanding, or whatever it might be, that makes you unique. Renal, SEO, if you're really good at SEO or research, you can indicate that in there as well. You can also indicate your level of proficiency with each of those skills by stating it out, like knowledgeable with, proficient in, expert at, and then sort of list those ones that you're an expert at. So you could do it that way as well. Again, just making sure that you're including those skills, because it was really, I do a lot of resume reviews, and it is pretty shocking to me. I know this person that I'm reviewing the resume is a super skilled person, but it's just not showing up in their, it's just not showing up on their resume. And a lot of times because they're not isolating out their skills from their work experience and putting them into a skills section. Again, you just want to make it super easy for the recruiter to be able to find you and find that match between what they're looking for and what you can provide. So pulling out some, you can keep the skills, you know, if you've got the geography for it on your resume, you can keep the skills included in the sentence of your work experience, but then you want to make sure that you pull those also out into your skills section. And you can put the skills like right on down the list. I've got a template for resumes, and in that template, it's just a straightforward one. But it's at the bottom of the list. It's around where your education is and memberships are. If, say, you've got a 2-page resume, it's usually at the bottom end of the second page. But if you like to use a different kind of fancy different template designs, I've got some great links under one of my pages, and I'll add that to this a post afterwards, and I'll include some links of things I like. And what I have a page called Stacey's Career Picks, and it's part of my newsletter. And in there, I include different resume template services that are out there. I love Creative Market. I don't know if you guys have ever been onto that website. Set a timer for yourself if you do go onto that website so that you can move on for the rest of your life, because you'll want to stay on there forever. So Canva has resume templates. Again, I'll put a link in so that you can see where some of those resume templates are. So Canva does, Canva Pro has a really great system of saving it, and you can make some modifications easier in that. A Creative Market has templates that include the font, and I also don't recommend getting too fancy with the font. You know, you don't want to get too serify. You want to make it really very legible using a simple font. But they have a great template that you can purchase, and they've got some free ones as well. So Creative Market is a good one. Canva is a good one, and then of course just Google Word and or Google Docs and Word themselves. They each have templates too, and always go with the chronological version of that. Let me see what other questions I have here. If you're trying to switch careers, though, this sort of goes in line with. So the question is, if you're trying to switch into a different area of dietetics, or you're coming in, you're making dietetics a second career option for yourself, and how to bring in your transferable skills, which I didn't talk about. Let me write that down, because I do want to make a note about that. But so addressing that question, definitely include any type of work experience on your live living document that's your resume. Now include any skills that that were relatable then to your next job. So there was a resume that I reviewed not too long ago, and the individual had some work experience. They were a newly minted dietitian, and they had some work experience at I think it was a store, like a department store or something, and they were not going to include that on their resume. But this person was responsible. They had other people under them. They were pretty young, and they had other people that they were managing. They had a responsibility for, I think they had responsibility for the till. They were, the money. And so we added that job back into their resume to show that they can manage people, that they can track money, they can be responsible, they're reliable. And so we thought that was important to do. So if you have other work experience, just bring everything in together to show how it would benefit you in that next job, to show what skills you gained from your past experience. Because we're a compilation. You've heard my story before about all the different types of jobs I've had, and I was just interviewed for a podcast, and I swear we took a disproportionate amount of time just talking about all my past jobs that I've had, and all of those just bring in a wealth of knowledge to me sitting here right here with you right now. So all of that comes together into who you are right now. So highlighting some of those experiences. If you were in, you've had lots of different types of jobs, but if you did sports nutrition in the past and you want to go into lactation consulting, you can talk about maybe some patient populations you worked with back then that transfer, that knowledge base transfers into your new patient population, or the ability to work with calculations, or whatever it might be that's a transferable skill. So I don't think you need to hide any of that, of course, but definitely highlight those transferable skills. I then wanted to talk about transferable skills. Thanks that this led into it, and I just remembered as well. Transferable skills are those common skills that are sort of generic in nature, and that is communication skills, which includes writing or oral presentations. Your team playing skills. Your there's a whole list of them I've got. But any sort of generic skill that's not specific to a computer language like Cboard or SPSS or whatever, they're just sort of how you are at work, how you show up at work skills. And I don't recommend putting those particular skills in that little skills section because they're just so generic. It doesn't say what you are. Instead, keep those top of mind. Include those in your quantifiable work experience bullet points. So for example, if you say you're a good written communicator, then in your work experience, you should have something that says excellent, or this could also go in your summary of qualification, excellent communication skills demonstrated by producing 300 blog postings with a particular number of sessions that have been previewed on those postings, but just giving that quantifiable stuff that you with excellent reviews or whatever the review or whatever the metric was that you use to justify whether your writing is good or not, that an outsider could also understand. So including that in the section of quantifiable work experience is good. Let's see, what else was I going to mention about that? Again, yeah, so just don't be too generic. Be specific, be quantifiable, and in your work experience, definitely want to include, and this is part of a modern resume, you want to list your resume first with what the scope is of the job, and then after that, a couple bullet points of what your quantifiable work experience was. If the work experience is not so relevant anymore, like let's say it was working at a bank or it was working at a department store or whatever it might be, that information doesn't need to take up a ton of real estate. That could just be 1 or 2 lines total on your resume, but definitely include showing where you have transferable skills and or soft skills, whatever you want. Foundation skills are also called, and include those in your quantifiable work experience. All right, it is 9:30. Or excuse me, 12:30 on the East Coast, and it's middle of the hour. How about that? So I will add some more stuff to this, some more juicy stuff, so that you can link back over to my site where I've got some of these resources. And again, definitely check out the course that is. I've got paid courses, of course, also, but I've got the Boost, which is the freebie on there. And at the beginning of COVID, the pandemic, I was able to do a lot of live webinars, and I stopped doing that, and I would like to go back to doing it because they're just so fun. And so check over at Nutrition Jobs, and you'll see where we have our live webinars and when they're happening next. So I hope you can join those. I am so delighted that you are here, and I really appreciate it. If you've got any questions, you can respond back to me. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook, of course, but you can also just send me a note through my website. That works as well. I'm also on Twitter. Sarah Kosix does all of that social media on Twitter, so I'm not as good with that. But I would love to be able to connect with you. And also a shout out for Sarah Kosix, who does a lot of the writing for Nutrition Jobs, and she's just amazing. She's just really great. She's a good egg. Okay, that's it for today. And I'm super delighted to be able to present to you, and I wish you well in your next professional endeavor. And bye for now.